Well, hi, friends. It's John Rustin with NC Family. Happy post-election Wednesday to you. We wanted to provide you with a brief update on the status of elections in North Carolina as best we can at this point, because there still remains a lot that is up in the air. So let's jump right in. If you'll bear with me, I'm going to share my screen with you so that we can look at the State Board of Elections website. As you're probably aware, the major media outlets and the state have yet to call the presidential race and the U.S. Senate race in North Carolina, primarily because, as we see on the Board of Elections website, there are still 117,000 absentee ballots that remain outstanding. Now, that does not mean that all of these ballots are going to be submitted, but the State Board of Elections has to make accommodation for that in case they are. And of course, these ballots, to be valid and to be counted in North Carolina, have to be postmarked by yesterday, November the 3rd, Election Day, but they can be received by the Board of Elections up until November the 12th, so about a week and a half. So we could be waiting for days and days to find out what the ultimate outcome of these elections are in North Carolina, especially the ones that are super, super close. So just keep that in mind as we're talking through this, that there still remains 117,000 absentee ballots that remain outstanding in North Carolina. So let's go look at the status of these races. As we'll see again on the Board of Elections website, Donald Trump has a lead over Joe Biden in North Carolina of over 76,000 votes. In the U.S. Senate race, Tom Tillis leads Cal Cunningham by over 96,000 votes. And so I think it's highly unlikely that if all of those 117,000 outstanding absentee ballots are submitted, that it's going to make a difference in the ultimate outcome of these two races. I think Donald Trump is likely to win North Carolina, and Tom Tillis has already declared his victory here as well. One thing that we'll see on the website here is that turnout in this election is right close to 75% turnout, with over almost 5.5 million votes cast. So a high level of interest and a lot of activity by voters in the state, which is great to see. Additionally, as we look down, and I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but at our congressional races, North Carolina has 13 congressional seats. And prior to the election, these seats have been held by 10 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Well, after the elections last night, that breakdown has gone to 8 Republicans and 5 Democrats, primarily because 2 of these districts were ordered to be redistricted by the courts and went from leaning Republican to leaning Democrat. And so Democrats picked up 2 seats in North Carolina in the United States House, helping to solidify the Democratic majority in the United States House. It does look like Republicans are going to maintain their majority in the United States Senate. So we, obviously have to keep an eye on these absentee ballots. I don't think there are enough votes there to impact the outcome of any of these congressional races. So let's jump and take a look at the Council of State here. As you probably heard, of course, Roy Cooper has been reelected as the Democratic governor of North Carolina with a margin of almost 250,000 votes over Republican Dan Forrest. Mark Robinson, running for lieutenant governor, beat Democrat Yvonne Lewis Hawley. So Mark Robinson, among other things, will preside over the state Senate as lieutenant governor. Very interesting race for Attorney General. Josh Stein, the incumbent running for re-election, has only about a 10,000 vote margin over Republican challenger Jim O'Neill in this race. And if you consider that a margin of about 10,000 votes and consider that there are 117,000 outstanding absentee ballots, that could have an impact ultimately in the outcome of this race. So some interesting statewide races here. I think some of the most interesting races on the statewide level are these judicial races excuse me while I bring up the results here. There are 3 seats that were up on the state Supreme Court and 5 seats up on the State Court of Appeals. And as it stands right now, not counting these absentee ballots, Republicans appear to be leading in all of those races. So 3 seats on the state Supreme Court and 5 seats on the Court of Appeals. But if you look at the percentage of margin in these races over on the right-hand side of the Board of Elections website, you see that those races are all super, super close. The closest of which is the race for Chief Justice between Paul Newby and Sherry Beasley, which is decided right now, again, without these 117,000 outstanding absentee ballots, by less than 4,000 votes out of 5.5 million votes cast. So we've been telling you these races, especially these statewide races, are likely to be decided by razor-thin margins, and that's certainly the case now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I do want to mention the state legislative races. In the North Carolina Senate, the expectation was that Democrats may pick up a few seats and narrow the margin, the 8-seat margin that Republicans enjoyed in that chamber. Republicans going into the election held a 29 to 21 seat majority in the North Carolina Senate. It appears that Republicans lost 1 seat, bringing that majority margin down to 28 to 22. Republicans to Democrats. So Republicans still hold a fairly sizable majority in the state Senate. Now, in the state House, expectations were also that Democrats were going to close the 10-seat margin advantage that Republicans held in that chamber. But what, in fact, it looks like happened is that Republicans may have picked up as many as 4 seats in the state House, taking a 65 to 55 Republican to Democratic majority up to a 69 Republican majority, 51 Democrat minority. Again, these absentee ballots could have an impact on the outcome of these races, but I don't think the margins in the state Senate and the state House are going to change much as a result. So Republicans will have maintained their majorities in both chambers of the North Carolina General Assembly. And of course, Roy Cooper has won his reelection for governor. And so we're likely to continue to see a bit of a stalemate with the consideration and passage or lack thereof of legislation in North Carolina. Friends, 2 things I want to stress to you. We've got to be patient. We don't know how long it's going to take to get the final results of these elections. So let's be patient. And secondly, let's be prayerful. We need to pray that the true victors in these races will be announced, that every vote will be counted, every valid vote will be counted, and that ultimately that God will be glorified in the midst of this. Hey, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your interest and your commitment to family, faith, and freedom in North Carolina. God bless you, and God bless your family. Thanks.